Should we say welcome? Welcome to our LSFF network webinar. Where was that word birthed? Do you want to introduce yourself, or should I?
You go. You do the honours. You go first.
Okay, I'm Luna Carmoon. That's not my real name, but you'll never know that. Yeah, I guess I'm a filmmaker. I don't know. Just a human trying to get by. I really never know how to introduce. How do you introduce yourself in like 10 seconds?
Yeah, just from a filmmaker. Also, I feel like that was playing into it. It feels like a late night radio show now. Like
it does, yeah.
Dulcet tones. Like, hello, I'm Sophie Littman. Welcome to this is midnight smooth listening. Yeah.
Whoa, that was really good. That really sounded like a nice like chocolate bar advert.
Oh, thanks. Maybe this should become my new side hustle, you know.
I think so.
Like an ASMR. But yeah, I'm a filmmaker. My name's Sophie Littman too.
My name. Should we talk about maybe how we got into film? Or
Yeah.
How did you get into film, like as in to the place that you are now?
So I went to art college and I was making lots of like videos of when I like towards the end of my time there, I was making lots of like video installations, and a tutor started showing me all these films and I was like, oh my gosh, amazing. And then sort of snowballed from there. And I remember I was making like these really intricate, annoying to edit video installations that were like a nightmare. This is a tangent. This goes off on another place. Massive tangent. And I remember I was in this seminar and someone asked me a question, why have you got all these things happening on separate screens? And I was like, because they're all separate accounts, like duh, they have separate screens. And then a friend of mine whose film was actually also playing LSFF, you should definitely go check it out, Sasha Littman Savers, in the international, can't say that word, competition. She was like, but what do you mean they all have to be on separate screens? They can be one, that's cinema. And okay, that's a very long tangent. I went to art college, going to film through that. Sorry, massive. What about you?
We love a tangent. I think that should be the name of the radio station. It's just Tangent FM, because that's all we're going to go on today. Yeah. Well, I always loved film, like since I was like 14. I used to just I would literally plan sick days in school to pull a sickie. So I would go into school knowing the film that I was going to watch when I come home, have it already up on like Put Locker. I was ready, mega share, and I would just, be like, I'm really sick. Like I knew exactly the time of days that I was going to plan to bunk school to come home to watch films.
That's so great.
But I've always like just watch stuff like all of the time anyway. I was always sick as a child. I was always like be really ill and just be off for like 3 weeks off of school and just be watching mad stuff. But obviously when you're little, like it would just be like from the Virgin Media store or whatever your nan and granddad had on like VHS. But yeah, it's just my escape. I think a lot of people like struggle with school or struggle with home. Like cinema just becomes like a safe space, isn't it? I used to just go under my bed and just watch films for hours. Like
that actually makes me think quite a lot about because your film Shagbands, which I just love, it like mines so much of it, feels like such a personal film, and I was just like interested like in how you're mining your teenage time. Like what was that process like where did the writing start for that? Sorry, just random.
No, thank you. Yeah, everything is really personal. Like even if I'm doing something that isn't mine, I always will look for something that's personal. But yeah, it was mainly things that happened to me from the ages of like 9 to 17. And first, like you always start off with like, I don't know how, again, which is what I was going to ask you about, like ideas, like how do they sort of get to that place where you know you're like, that's it, you're going to write about? Because I see a lot of things like visually in like snapshots, almost like little moving like portraits of things, and then try and like I'll have them over the space of time, and then I will sew them up. I'll get to a point where I'll just be lazy or like incubating on them for like a year, and then we'll sew them up.
That's so cool.
Because that's what I
do that in Shagbands. Though it's like one of the questions I had here. I was like, where did like, at what point did it start snowballing? Because it feels just like this accumulation of lots and lots of things.
Well, yeah, that's weird that you say it, because it is over, you know, from like the ages of 9 to 17. Like I was actually a lot younger when a lot of this stuff was happening to me, and yeah, it was the same with Nosebleed as well. Like I remember when I saw the girls on the bike, like in my head, and obviously that's based on me and my best friend as well, and snapshots of, I guess, because that's like kind of like hyper surreal. If there were snapshots of that in my head, and I always knew that was going to be my first story, and it's just like weaving them together. Like
that's so cool.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
No, sorry, you go.
Oh no. I was just, because I was thinking, yeah, it's almost like you take these, it feels like when watching Shagbands, like it's like you've got these things that feel really familiar to you, and then you're like immortalizing them and making them, I don't know, it's like you're making your own urban myths and legends. It's so it's so cool. Like I love it. It's like everything is laced with this really magical edge. But yeah,
that's so weird you say that, because like that is all I did in school. Was I would do in ICT, me and this girl Maddie Byers, shout out Maddie Byers, like my emo twin, we would finish our modules for like ICT like in the first week of term. So the whole rest of the term we would just be like watching like YouTube lyric videos or urban myths, like literally with like The Hitchhiker, like all of them old like unsolved mystery episodes we would just be watching like in ICT.
Because it really comes through, and because I was reading this thing the other day, actually, this interview with this guy Jonathan Fennell, and it really made me think of your work. So it's like he said something like, actually I wrote it down, I'll read it.
Wait, what has he done, Jonathan Fennell? Is that Caroline Poggy?
Yeah. So it makes me think of your stuff. Like it's such a like.
I love them guys so much. They're so sick.
Yeah, it makes so much sense with you. It's such a similar like tone.
Yeah,
I think it's really cool thing. I think their work really, really reminds me of yours.
Oh,
and he said like in this interview, it was everything, I might be misquoting it, but like everything you dream as a teenager can be made a reality in a film. And I was like, that is so like your work. It's like taking these things and taking these dreams and then making them a reality. And I think like what's so cool with Shagbands is like because you play into like the dreamy element, but then you're so aware of like these monsters. Sorry, I am totally going off on like
no, we love a tangent. Go.
Yeah. So it's like you're so aware of these sort of monsters that are like almost versions of reality, ready to like puncture the dream, like these horrible, and I don't know, I just think it's really cool how you straddle both things. Oh, I actually have a question for you, because you mentioned Nosebleed, which I loved. I saw it like a couple of years, because how long ago did that come out?
I think it came out in 2018, I think. So yeah, in like May 2018.
So I think it's such like your latest one, like it's such a good progression. And I was going to ask you, is blood solidifying or breaking apart friendships going to become an ongoing theme in your work? Because I hope it is.
Do you know what? Literally, someone said to me the other day, like, why does everything you do end in like a head injury? And I thought, damn, I was like, it doesn't, I don't know why. I guess like, I don't know, I feel like I have quite a violent imagination, completely like just violence, but inside of the shadow.
Yeah.
I was literally, and I'm really conscious of that actually. It's like whenever I do my feature, is that doesn't end in blood, which because I'm like, everyone's just gonna think like it's just like knitting needles or like blood like everywhere. But
you'd embrace it. You should like that. It can be like your thing. I don't know. It's
just like bloody and muddy hands. But I watched your film yesterday because obviously it hasn't been online, and that's the only time I could see it. Sudden Light. And before I watched your Q&A with Philip, I was like, this is sci-fi. And before, I swear down, because I went through all your films, and I was watching Jellyfish, but then obviously I've seen like Village Orchestra before. Like, I'd seen all that stuff, like Stop, Play, Record. Like, when they came out, I remember watching them. But I watched A Day at the Beach, and I knew I got this undercurrent of like A Day at the Beach, and I was like, this is the stuff she's gonna make though. Like, this is the stuff that she's gonna make, because what I'm always like, I'm not a massive like sci-fi, like Star Wars. No offense to the 84 participants, if you love Star Wars, brilliant. But like, when I'm looking for like sci-fis, they definitely are more like psychological and how I feel when I'm going through like bad mental health episodes. And with Sudden Light, because I disassociate, and I've had episodes where I've disassociated for like 2 years at a time. And I remember my first episode, and you managed to like capture that in Sudden Light, in this, your brain is completely, and I think a lot of people, when they have their first like mental health like episode, is like, you know, is your teen years. And I remember when I first had it, it was like a severe, like my brain was playing complete tricks on me all of the time. I was scared of my own shadow, like literally, and you managed to capture that in Sudden Light. And I was wondering if there was any, like, clearly the film is about her, you know, she's losing, you know, her relationship with her dad. But just tell me more, like, how did that idea like birth? Like, did you know it was going to feel like that, like the whole time before you even wrote it?
Yeah, so like I really always wanted it to be like, thank you, like so cool that you like picked up with that with The Day at the Beach as well, because it's such a but like, yeah, I always really wanted it to be like the psychological manifesting itself in the surroundings. Like, I was obsessed with like these limbo shifting landscapes for ages, and then like I knew that the story was going to be about these two girls who are about to lose their dad, and so it was always sort of supposed to be the further they went from the road, the more and more the more blurry it became, and the more trippy it's almost like they fall into a tear within the landscape, and then it's like the inside manifesting itself outside. And it's funny because when you were talking, I was just thinking, it made me think so much about, I don't know, like that scene in Mulholland Drive in the Winkies diner, which is like my favorite scene in like the entire world. But it's exactly that. It's like where you can't tell the difference between reality and like, it's a real disassociation kind of feeling. It's like this, you feel like you've been here before in a dream, and you cannot get a grip on reality, and how that is so terrifying. And just, yeah, I guess flailing around trying to get a grip or some sort of sense of control, and then everything is conspiring against you to like stop that.
But like, what was so impressive about it was like how subtle it was, because to me it felt like, because obviously like the whole landscape is like polymorphing like around her like all of the time. It's like she's on like this green roundabout of just like kamikazes into like just how I felt when I was watching it. And I just don't think many people like can do it at all, is actually how, because I feel like when you go in episodes like Psychosis or episodes, they very much echo hysterical dreams. And I have memories of dreams that I've had as a kid where I'm literally like, it will be so random. Like, my mum will just be sitting at the end of the bed and I'll be like, what's wrong, mum? And she'll just go, ah, and I'll just be like, that's so hysterical. And like, I remember this one dream I had, and it was like in my sister's bedroom. I looked out and it was a giant field and there was a tree, and then all of a sudden I'm like polymorphed, I'm down by the tree.
Oh, right.
And there was like all of these people in like primary colour jumpers. I must have had this dream like age 7. And there's like doppelgangers of my mum. And there's no reason for the dream to be hysterical at all, but it started to get really hysterical in the most like serene landscape. And I still have memories of like nightmarish dreams that would just transform like that from a kid. And you managed to get that in Sudden Light, how there is just such horror in like mundanity, like that.
Because that's how I felt with Shagbands. I was like, you take the dream elements of daily, like, yeah, the things that are familiar, and like take them into this dreamy realm, or like then that become like a nightmarish realm. But like that moment where she's with the fan, and it just feels so, I don't know, it's so sensory and so dreamy. And then, oh my gosh, also the tree, I have to talk to you about where you found that tree.
So like everything is filmed where I live, because I write my scripts like within where I live. I God knows what I'm going to do when if I have to do it somewhere else. I don't know how I'm going to be able to do it, but these are all like places that I literally used to hang about with when I was a kid. But finding that tree, there's a giant park near where I live. It goes on for miles. It goes all the way from like Beckenham to Crystal Palace. Like, it's huge. And the bit that's closer to me, I was hunting for these trees because some reason where I live, loads of trees have just started falling down, and I found this massive like uprooted tree, and it was amazing. But then I found this tree near the train station that the train would just go past, and I just looked at it, and I would stand there and wait, and the trains actually come like every 2 minutes, like they're so often. And I was like, this is the tree, this is the Shagban tree. And then when I watched your film and there was that skeleton tree, I was like, oh my God, there are like weird mirrors. Like, we both have a skeleton tree, and we both have that really like bugs in stomach, like infesting sound of like insects, which is, I don't know why that's like rooted in like the human subconscious or something, but it's something you go to that makes you just like feel like your skin's unraveling,
squirming,
really. And yeah, there was so many weird comparisons with ours though that I was noticing. I was like, God, I think I wrote them down something.
No, I totally felt the same thing. I remember when I saw your insects, I was like, I don't know. I think there's so many different numbers. That's so interesting with like the locations being placed you go. Because I had a question written down for you with that, because it feels like that, and I was wondering with like the specifics, how you went about finding things, because like, I don't know, you just answered that question, but like, the specifics of everything in your head and then having it play out, it's so cool.
So, thank you. I don't know, I feel like I'm just a complete I'm really quirky. No, I just like going like on walks. Like, whenever I feel like I'm stuck in a rut, like I just go on walks, and I then seem to like regress. As you do, I learned as well that if you're going in a direction, like even if you're on a bike and it's like, I don't know, one of them stands, you do it in your living room. If you're doing something in a direction, ideas start to literally just come into you. And I was like, that's so true. That's so true. And if you're doing it where you live, I don't know, do you live in the countryside?
In the south, in the southwest.
I bet then even when you were going on your walks, sometimes like where you're in this autopilot, which is the same sort of like limbo of dream I get when I'm walking or if I'm reading, is that you start to regress and remember things, like they just start flowing into you, like, oh, that street, that's where they lived, and that's where, and these things just start to come back to you. But I feel like we don't do that as much now, because I'm always on my computer.
Now we're just in it. But that's so true with like, there's something about moving forward, like just walking, that gets things going. And then if you're doing that around the area that you live, of course, like these different memories. 100%. Because actually that's so much of Sudden Light was like, I think I was like, when I first initially thought of it, I was just walking. I was like back home at my mum's and just walking and thinking for ages. And then so
what was like the first thing, like the first like flicker, like image of Sudden Light that you were like, this is it, or like the first thing that came to you, and how did that come to you that that's what it was going to look like?
I'm trying to remember. I think like I always felt like it was going to be these two girls walking, and I mean, it was ages ago that I had that, because I think I really wanted something that was like quite a simple setup, that was just two girls going for a walk, and then I just merged it with this idea. I really wanted to do something. I've like been obsessed with like shifting landscapes, but I just always go back to like the same things, which is really bad. I think finally I've like exercised that sort of part of my stuff that I make, which is just always going back to the same thing of like a shifting landscape, like
no, I love it.
Patches, I think so I think, I don't know, I'm really not sure. I think probably just thinking about these two girls and then marrying that with the idea of like these two things can happen in the film. So yeah, because what about you? When did the first flicker of Shagbands come into like?
It was 2 years ago, and I wrote this Damien. Oh, am I allowed to say his real name? Oh, well, Damien Ratstail Boy. That was his name in real life. Like all of that happened. Like he was a real dude, and he did say that very out there sentence to me. Like when I was 13, like everyone in my film is a real person that I grew up with, and I always thought that was so funny that happened. He didn't cut his rat stuff for me, but it was so funny because we've always like crossed paths like all the time. I saw him in the car a couple of weeks ago, and he's obviously forgotten about that interaction like completely. And we just crossed each other, and I was like, it's just so weird. He has no idea I've written a film. Like he's in that film. But there was always like this little story, like Rat's Tail. It was just called Rat's Tail. It was just like a sweet little like moving image in my head of like me romanticizing that thing that had happened. But then I started to think about Nosebleed, and I thought, oh no, I feel like I've done a really disservice to like teenage girls and friendships. Like I've only shown, and where it was hyper surreal, like I think you can get away with it because it's not grounded in reality. It is, again, like a dreamscape. But I started to feel really bad, and I was like, oh my God, but how about all the girls that I've grown up with that have molded me and literally just made me who I am? And I've done a disservice to them. Like I owe it to the teenage girls I grew up with to capture them in a 3D way, in a real 3D that when you watch these girls, you can all imagine them in their own existence. And and then I was always obsessed with Shagbands. Like I was never cool enough to wear them or whatever, and I was a bit too young. But I was just fascinated how they'd never been immortalised, that they kind of just were forgotten. They were just completely forgotten, and never before and since have we had a physical object that sort of embodies what it's like to be policed and objectified as a young girl. Like there's never going to be an item of clothing like it. Like that's just never going to happen again.
Oh my God, I remember them so like, and you're so right. Like you haven't seen, but I don't know. It's so cool because then you lace it with like this magical edge. Like it is like taking something that we know and then making it, I don't know, taking it to another place. Like you're creating these legends. I think it works so well.
But it's so weird as well, isn't it? Like everything, like when you're a teenager, does feel like a mythological law. Like you're learning the laws of society, you're learning the laws of like your place in circles, and especially in like secondary school, you are being flooded with like all this information that you didn't have when you was in primary school, which was just very one level, to like all of these layers of like how you work in situations, and everything does become like mythological completely. And I don't even know, like, is it like that now at school? Is it just like Snapchat? It's not very physical, is it? It's scarier. Like it's all in your head, like Snapchat bait accounts, Instagram gossip accounts. Like that would be the equivalent, I feel like, to Shagbands now, which is dangerous on a like it is like a digital like sexual assault. Like that is what it embodies now, but then it was,
But that's interesting actually thinking about it, because like with the digital element, with the idea that things can be recorded, it kind of takes away from the myth, lore, kind of legend thing, because it's sort of like you have more proof of it. Whereas I guess before, like you have like almost like you have in the film, like a little video that feels like a video from your phone or something, like of the tree. Like you had snippets of that, but it was just like these stories that would travel for so far, and you don't know what's true and what's not, and it does all become, it's like Arthurian lore or something. It's like
it really is. But that's
the round table.
Do you know what? That's weird that you say that, because where I live, all the roads are based on the Knights Round Table.
No way.
Yeah, like all of the roads are based on, like, we've got like Lancelot and
Oh my God, amazing. Oh, I'm like from Glastonbury, so I am that I also is like very much embedded in in my teen years in various ways. But
it's so weird though, isn't it? Like when you are that age, and especially then in that vacuum of time, things did feel more magical.
Yeah.
Like things did feel like you could get away with a, like more like mythological, like, and like secrets and rumors. They didn't travel as far. It wasn't as dangerous, so it was more exciting.
Or like, yeah, there was something a bit less tangible about them. Like, even if they did travel, like, it's not so specific to you, and like, because it's not like there's physical evidence or proof or whatever, like it's not digitized. But yeah, because I also think that's so cool. I felt like in the end, I don't know whether to say actually, because like, is that going to be a spoiler for anyone watching your film? But like, in the end, I'll try and say it in like the most coded way. But like, when you take it to a really heightened place, it feels like taking the elements of, it's like the ultimate win for the girls, because it's like, it's kind of like, I see you adults, horrible versions of reality trying to take away my dream, and I give you this like proper nightmare. It's like they win by still playing in this dream world. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
no, it's true, because obviously, like, I don't know whether you make films, like, even if they're not directly based on your real experience, there is an element of something that has happened to you that is being translated in that. And I feel like with my films, I try and take control of things that I maybe didn't have control of.
yeah.
And I think I'd never watched a scene like that where a girl reacts that way, because when you're that age, it's not until something happens to someone close to you that you realise some of the things that happened to you were wrong. And I feel like they both witnessed that in each other. And then I always thought, like, although I have had experience like this, like, what would happen if a man like that was then presented with the very thing that he like pines after, is then confronted with them as violent as they are in a completely different, I wanted that scene to feel like very hysterical, like real hysterical, how it would feel, which is the same as you, like it's something that I feel like we both are quite interested in, is trying to capture the hystericalness in things. And I feel like the only way that you can talk about hystericalness is through dreams, is through like the dreamscape, where literally someone will just come sit next to you and you're, like that David Lynch scene, and you're in the most mundane area, but everything is uncanny valley, everything is slightly off and expired. And I feel like we both are trying to get to that expired undercurrent where things just become hysterical, like the most little things become hysterical. Like, even when I was watching A Day at the Beach, I was like, there's something very, that it's so serene, and you almost created like this whole entire like syntax. Like, I was like, how did she do this? Like, how did she actually write this? And where did this come from? Like, this idea, or writing this, like A Day at the Beach.
I mean, that was literally just something, I think I wrote it, I was really frustrated with, I can't remember, what was I really frustrated with? I was trying to do something, and I was getting really bogged down with how slow it was being, because I did it like a long time ago, and I just wrote out like this conversation with two people who've never met, constructing this memory together, and I just wrote it, and then I was like, okay, now what am I gonna do with this? And then I went down to film some footage on the beach and put it on there, and then my friend had this amazing track, and I was like, this is perfect for it, so put that on there.
But I think that's so perfect for now as well. Like, it's so perfect for people like watching this now, that I feel like so much stuff is going to come out of like bedroom core, like people making stuff in their bedrooms, going back to scratch, because things are going to be moving a lot slower unless they're mainstream. That some mad genius stuff is just going to come from people being in that bogged down state of everything going slow, of just making like filmic stuff in their bedrooms and like by themselves. And I think like you lose that.
Yeah, I think you can so lose, and it's like it's such a good feeling to just like get something, like try something out and like get it out of your head. I don't know, it's it's very satisfying.
But it's magic. Like, I was watching your film and I was literally like, it was so serene, but I found myself like, I'm getting so calmed down by the score, I'm getting so calmed down just reading it, but yet it's becoming like hellish. it's becoming like hysteria. I'm like, what, like how you feel in a dream, like how nothing's happening but your brain is just getting hysteric. And that's how I felt watching A Day at the Beach. Like it was so good.
Oh, it's so the same stuff that I think you're interested in, like of this like uncanny, terrifying. Because also I think like with that, I think it's such a good way of communicating these emotions, like the surreal nature, that like uncomfortable cognitive dissonance that you get. It's like sometimes the only way to communicate a feeling, like where you don't know it's like the girls in your film. It's like when you can't quite get your head around what's going on, that does manifest itself in this weird sensation of like, oh, I'm just not, and it becomes hysteria. I don't know, that's sort of a ramble, but I think it's such an interesting place to play in, because it's also the perfect way, especially like because I was suddenly like because it's all about losing someone, really, and like I don't know, that's the horror is the only way to really get that. I don't know.
No, it is, and I feel like it very does start manifesting itself when you're like a young teenager, like pre-pubescent. And I was noticing like how you manage to create like dialogue and syntax is mad. Like, because should we tell them how we met and we kind of didn't meet? How I was like doing like girls in films like Instagram account, and I came to one of the events and I saw Jellyfish, and that was like, how long ago was that? Like,
it was a long time ago, because it was like, I think that event was like, was it 5? No, maybe longer. 5 years ago. 5 years ago.
And I watched Jellyfish, and I rarely would ever contact someone after anything, like ever. But I added you on Facebook and I sent you a message because I couldn't believe how you managed to like literally like contract that from how you would speak. And you often forget how you speak at certain ages, and completely like the semantics of like how language changes like as you get older, but you managed to capture that so well. Was you like writing that, like observing your sister? Is that?
Yeah, but because also that's really interesting, because I'm going to remind me to ask you a question about the performances in Shagbands, actually. But like, so because that was my sister when she was that age, and I think I just so many cards. I just spend so much. I'm really close with both my sisters, and just spending so much time with her, it just filters in.
All through, yeah. It's so good. Like there's this one bit, and she's Grace said she texted me last night and she didn't, and she says that's the 700th time she's done that now. I wish I would go for a bloody phase. I was like, that's so good. And I remember watching it and being like, I have to message her, because I don't know how she's managed to capture like this dialogue like that. And then you managed to do that in A Day at the Beach, because A Day at the Beach reminds me of when you are almost that age as well. Like The Day at the Beach, the two characters, I don't know what they are. They could be AI, they could be old people, they could be young, but they almost feel like this hybrid of like someone who's really old and really young. The way I remember Chanel Sparrow, I love you, but I remember I managed to like make her think that I'd given her a DVD back once, because I genuinely thought I lost it, and then I found it a week later, and I managed to like basically like give her a false memory of like detailing it of how I'd given her this DVD. And that's what The Day at the Beach was like. It was like how you try and convince each other in memory to the point that you're so out of what you're talking about that you both just go along with whatever you're saying, and it becomes this whole new memory.
Man, this is so cool talking, because like I never talk about this film with anyone, because no one's like ever really seen it, and it's like that's exactly it. Because I remember when I was writing it being like, oh, is this a bit weird, like the way they're talking? Is it gonna be? And I was just like, oh fuck it, like it's not like a, but yeah, exactly, because that's what they were supposed to be, like sort of one's a sort of AI person and one's like a sort of old young, and it is that trying to convince one another. But like actually, because I was thinking, because the performances in Shagbands are like, they are so natural, and I was like wondering how much of it was scripted or how much was improvised, because then when I was listening though, I was like, but there are definitely, I can totally imagine that it's all actually pretty scripted, and then but it just feels so, it's like everything feels so natural in their mouths.
Oh, thank you. No, most of it is actually scripted. Yeah, I think a lot of people think like loads of it is like improvised, but it's actually not. Like pretty much what you see on the script is what you get, other than like tiny little ad libs. Or,
Oh,
but even the ad libs, like I will then have a whole script that I have of little bits and pieces that, you know, like there's a bit when the two girls, Molly and Ellie, are like walking and they're talking about, oh, your Woolworths PE kit, which obviously just gets cut out in the edit as well. But I have little bits of dialogue that follow them into the scene, so it just feels like they just go straight into it. That I give them on the day as well. But no, I'd say like 98% of that was scripted totally. But I just said, like, if things just don't sound right, then just say that how you would say that. But obviously we had like a script editor, like what supervisor.
Oh yeah. It feels so natural in their minds. Like you write such insanely natural dialogue, and like I don't know, you can feel. I could almost feel through watching that film like your relationship with the girls as well. Like I don't know, the sense that I don't know, it's like a really tight bunch.
It was really like it's almost, it's horrendous, ain't it? When you finish a film, like you're working on something for 3 years, and then it all just shuts. You're just alone again. And you're like, am I just trying to like self-sabotage myself like completely, like just to feel this? But it's almost like, again, like I just want to feel like I'm on a school trip again. That feeling, that heightened feeling you get from a school trip, and that you just don't get when you're an adult. There's less and less experiences in groups that you. I always think, like, why are there not like summer camps for adults? Like, how am I meant to meet people and make friends if everything is online? But film manages to do that, and yeah, I spent a lot of time with them, and I still text them like nearly every week or something. But
yeah, I guess that's also, it's funny hearing you say that, like with it being something that's built up from 3 years, because like you do feel like, I don't know, when you finish, like Sudden Light was such a personal film for me, and then when you finish something that's so personal and it's gone and done, you're like, wait,
I know, what do I do with my life? You're like, it's weird as well, because like doing things like this, like everyone's like, you're in the industry, but you don't feel like that at all, because 99% of your time is alone in your room wondering if everything is going to get funding, which leads me to these Q&As I can see coming up that we've just left on around. Right, can you see what I'm seeing, Anna Mackenzie? Can you see that on the Q&A bit?
I'm going up, sorry, I totally missed all the Q&A.
Should I read one? It says, hi all, I'm a film graduate and I graduated last summer into this pandemic, and I'm really at a loss of how to get things made in the current climate, or even find existing news so I can help on set again. Do you have any resources apart from BFI, of course, that offers info support for inexperienced filmmakers? I feel like the first part of that question is very much of like, you know, if you go watch Sophie's film A Day at the Beach, because that's sort of what I'm doing at the moment, is like I'm trying to write what I'm writing, but at the end of the day, like what got us into this is making weird stuff in our bedroom, not having any connections into the industry at all, and just making stuff for us. And even with short flicks, how I got into short flicks was like from weird montages that I just had always been making. And I think, and as well, if you can't make stuff alone by yourself, then how are you going to do that on like a bigger level? And it's so much fun, like you said, like there's so much freedom in making stuff by yourself. And I think when you get to that part of like, you know, you're at a loss of how things getting made right now, everyone's in the same boat, and I think only like mad stuff can come from this, like great stuff can come from this. You know, I feel like we both wrote stuff like at rock bottom, like everything that I've made has come from at a loss of not knowing anyone in the industry,
and not having to, and like doing stuff through like, or like exactly you say, like alternative channel, like it teaches you, or not teaches you, but like I don't know, then you come at things from a different angle as well, like not being able to do stuff in a sort of conventional way, you start to form other ways of making narrative films. I think it like showed, and then that can also be a strength then when you do get to make something. I think that's a really good answer to that question.
Oh, and what other resources other than BFI?
You did the short flicks, didn't you?
Yeah, I did short flicks with Creative England, and they always have loads of resources, and I'm sure you can email anyone there and they could give you maybe some news or like updates of any like schemes coming out. I also got a grant, like a small grant from JBA award,
oh yeah,
and that can help you like sustain up to actually be able to live and make stuff as well, is really helpful. And Girls in Film as well, I think there's a mentorship things just opened up, I think.
Oh, I'm not sure. I know there's also the ICA do really, really good things. Like I did the stop, play, record, and that was amazing. And that really taught me so much. I think they've got a new thing with BBC New Creatives as well. And like the BFI is obviously super great.
And I reckon where there's not so much being funded and there's not loads of stuff that is, you know, big stuff that's being made, that this money in these, you know, for bigger projects maybe, is being filtered through into loads of little ones for shorts. And what else? I'm trying to think if there's any other. I'm not sure. I'll have a think, but I hope that answers that question.
Yeah.
How do we get our shorts?
Oh, it's the deadline today for the GIF mentorship.
Go Girls in Film. Lovely. Yeah.
And Nicola, who's there, is amazing.
She's really great. Are you seeing what I'm seeing, David York? Are you on that bit?
I think I'm on a different.
Because there's a chat and then there's Q&A.
Oh, I think I'm in the wrong. I'm in the chat.
The duality. Hi guys, it's not the most original question, but how did you get Shagbands fund? How have you made many shorts before?
Where's that?
David York.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay.
Well, how did you start off getting your stuff funded? Was it Stop, Play, Record was the first?
Yeah, I think Stop, Play, Record. Well, I was really, really lucky. I got a grant from my uni when I graduated.
Oh wow.
Yeah, which was like amazing. And then Stop, Play, Record, and then I applied to the BFI network funding, and it's sort of all been from there.
Snowballed.
Yeah, exactly. What about you? Where was it short flicks the first?
It was short flicks, yeah, because I didn't go to film school. I couldn't afford it. Because you look at film school, like it's like bloody hell, it's like 60 grand a year for like some of these. How is any normal person going to be able to afford that? I have absolutely no idea, which is why the industry, like everything is so rigged. But I was constantly looking at Creative England because I noticed that I loved a lot of the films that they were making. And then obviously they made Lady Macbeth and they sort of just went poof, they just went ping. But before Lady Macbeth came out, I noticed that they were making a lot of films that I, you know, really liked, like The Goob. I'm a big Goob fan. Everyone... Oh, it's so good. I rate The Goob so much. And I was like, I have to get this, otherwise there's no way I'm going to get in the industry. Like, I don't know anyone, mum and dad, like nothing. Like, I don't know anyone. I'm just working in CEX and sort of like battle royale to funding. And that's such a fantastic scheme because there's nothing like it, like nationally or internationally, where they give people the chance, like really just gave us a chance to just make something without us ever made anything before.
Yeah, I think those things are so vital. Like Stop, Play, Record is the same thing, and it's just like so like, and actually also to be fair, like the BFI, like I mean, I just had really tiny little things. I think it was just jellyfish that, yeah. So I don't know. I think it's such a like vital part. And it's like that someone can see something and think, right, yeah, I'll give them some money.
I think it is though. It's like you make stuff, like you started off making stuff in your bedroom where no one was critiquing, no one was giving you feedback. It was literally just from your like stream of consciousness. Like it was just something that you wanted to watch. Like that's what you started making, which is the same as we probably both did in our bedrooms with montages. And through these little things that you do by yourself and like you know, that you think are silly and no one's ever going to see, and you're just making them because one day when you're 80 you're going to go on your Vimeo and be like, that was strange, like I'm glad I made that, like a little time capsule. Is that these things really do end up getting you onto like your first, you know, your first entry, like, you know, these weird things of like filming yourself or filming things. And
and in that, like I know it's like a really cheesy thing, but like doing something that's really true to what you want to make, even if like, rather than doing things that you think are really good for getting funding, I think, because you never know what people, I don't know, or you it's sort of, people will see that you don't have to make something really slick and polished for someone to see
potential,
your potential. And like, yeah, I always remember when I went in for my first coffee, like with after Jellyfish with Matimba, who's incredible. He's like, yeah, so
without Matimba, like where would we be?
I know it's literally, yeah,
she changed so many people's lives. Like she literally is like a fairy godmother that has like rippled into,
she literally changed my life, like, yeah, exactly.
I think about her like every week, and Mary Burke, and I think, where would I actually be without these two women who just were like, here we go. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, it's like amazing, because it's sort of like, I don't know, just I think like, oh my gosh, just so grateful that she just sort of saw this small thing, was like, yeah, I think you should do this, and I was just like, yeah, here.
She definitely like pumped me up. I was like, whoa, like, yeah, I could actually do this. Like,
yeah, and like, making you stay true to yourself as well, because I so remember thinking like, oh, am I going to have to change things? And she was always so encouraging of, make the thing that you like, I don't know, just that belief in the thing that makes you quite, oh, I don't know, I don't want to sound cheesy, but like individual, I don't know, or the thing that's, I don't know, just
no, but it's so easy to be bow down, like surrender to like mainstream stuff in order to just be able to survive, which I completely understand at the same time.
Yeah,
but I know within myself, like, I don't want to live with a regret of making something that I've spent like 3 years of my life on, and it not feeling like 100% what I'd want to watch as a teenager, like, or, you know, my teen self, like doing a disservice to my teen self. But so I completely forgot what that question was. I'm really sorry. I feel like,
sorry, no, that's me going off on a.
Now we got Gabriella. What would be 5 tips you'd give to new young filmmakers and want to make shorts without any connections money? And how did you find the crew you work and trust in your projects? 5 tips.
Should we do one each?
Yeah. Yeah. Brain fart.
I think, well, I'm going to cheat a little bit and say what we were just talking about in terms of like, I think do something no matter how small, or even if it's just writing, because I know that with the post room before, you could just submit just a script in the BFI post room, but do something that feels really true to yourself. I feel really cheesy saying that line, but like really stays true to the things that you want to make, and yeah, no matter how small. That's my one tip.
No, but it's so true, isn't it? Like just make stuff that, like, I always think I want to make stuff that 14-year-old me would have bunked school for, to rush home to watch. Like, that's, I think my tip would be, just make stuff, like make weird stuff in your bedroom. Definitely, because you said how to make shorts without any connection or money, and we both began making montages basically with like scripts over them in our bedroom, and that gives you the freedom to create completely different narratives, you know, with confinements become sometimes then lead you to like explosions of like new stuff.
Yeah,
you know? Big and then budgets doesn't mean interesting.
Yeah, and it will mean that you make the most when you do get a big budget. Like, I don't know, on Sudden Light we were so up against it with, because I was like, oh my gosh, this much money to make a short, and it was like still, it was a really low budget for a short, but then it felt like enormous to me, and we definitely stretched it to breaking point. Like I was thinking about this the other night. I was chatting, our DP reminded me, who was like saying that we did some, like a rough calculation, and we had enough film to shoot each scene. Obviously it's like a rough calculation because different scenes are different lengths and stuff, but each scene a total of 3 times. So whether that be, and that's not 3 setups, that's like, that could be 1 setup but 3 takes, or 1 take of 3 setups. And I was like, then I just shot another short, and it was like, oh my gosh, this feels like such a luxury now. So I think working with constraints, so that's a massive tangent again, but like working with constraints, it's always going to help then later on as well, because you'll just be ready to maximize that. But yeah, definitely.
Totally.
Yeah, just like just do with what you can, like with a phone camera, with anything. So
no, it's so true. Like when you get that first sum of money, which, you know, you've never seen money like that in your life. You don't see it anyway, but you see it hopefully on screen. But like, just your brain can't comprehend how much money that is. Like, I try and imagine if that money was a person, how many people would be on like the M25. Like, how would that look like visually? And your brain just can't do it. And then you suddenly get that amount of money, and you're still scrumping and scraping and putting your own money back into stuff. Like somehow I end up doing that on everything that I do, still putting money into it, which seems mad, but
it's because you always stretch it, because you're used to working with, I don't know, it's always like, I think it's a good thing though, because it's always making, or it's always a good thing to be like pushed to the edge within the film, but the film's budget. I mean, like, because you're always making the most of it. You're never like, oh, what shall we do with this? just making the most ambitious project you can with what's available. I think it's really, I just realised there's another part to that. How did you find the crew you work with / trust in your projects? How did you find the crew that you work with?
So Lauren Dunn was basically the producer on all of the 5 Shortflix films, and I think she may have sent all our scripts out to people and then see who wanted to maybe work on that script, or who maybe wanted to work on that script. And basically have Rachel Clark, who's amazing. I wanted to shoot everything I do. It just makes it look like how it is in my head completely. And then her husband Freddie, who lights all of I call him the lighting alchemist because he's amazing. And then I feel like you still like sometimes searching you're like collect people, like obviously they're collecting you as well, but you're collecting people, and then you think maybe that person, no, I still haven't found that HOD. I'm still waiting to find that person that I don't have to translate things so much, that they just get it in like feeling. But I did get quite a lot of my crew from Shortflix, very luckily, otherwise I don't know how I would have. But I guess like just reaching out to people as well, like sometimes people will just get a feeling from your work or a feeling from you, and you just click, and they may want to do stuff with you, and just making stuff with your friends as well.
Oh yeah.
But how about you? How did you find your crew?
I'm not sure really. I feel like it's like the same. It's like you're like collecting, I don't know, like yeah. And I know what you mean of sort of, it's almost like there's one HOD that you're like, oh no, I don't feel like I quite got that yet. But then you like get, I don't know, then you like find someone, you're like, oh great, I can't wait for the next project. Or yeah.
It's weird because when you talk about it, it feels like when you're saying it, like answering this question, you make it sound like we make it sound like it just happens so smoothly, but it is constantly like treading through mud, trying to find the people, like friends, you know, friends don't come around that often, or people that you can really connect to on like a deep level, but when they do, it happens like so rarely. You just sort of like, oh, I need you. Like when I used to collect bouncy balls, I'm like, this is the one. Just like, it's mine.
Yeah, like having all the examples. I think especially when you make things that are slightly more unconventional, not to sound like super self-aware, we make really unconventional stuff. But I definitely think sometimes you're like, it feels extra special when you're like, oh yeah, this person gets it. Because sometimes, yeah, that does sound really like, not trying to sound pretentious, but it does, people who are open to slightly more weird, different ways of seeing things feels extra precious, because then you don't have to like trying to communicate something that is a bit off the wall to someone who doesn't want or isn't interested in that, is so much more difficult than if someone is into sort of similar things. They're like, great, yes, like this, and then you're speaking the same language, and it's really easy to bounce ideas around.
It's so easy. It is like friendships, you know, like you have like some people you can just talk and you don't, you know, and obviously in like different units of your life, people work in different units of your life, but like some of my friends, like it's like a real like emotional connection, and then some of my friends are like, you know, real banter, like they come from the same world as me, and they just, you know, I can slip them into my family and it works. Oh my god, 5 minutes left. How did that happen?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, wait, quick. Should we try and do this like speed dating? Okay, from applying to funding the festival submissions, what was the timeline, the major targets, what would you do differently? Did anything go wrong?
Things always go wrong.
Yeah, but I feel like that's the magic in whatever you're making, is like if you're as organised as you can be, then out of the mistakes come magic, like totally. Like
100%. I think my friend said something the other day that was like the expected amount of unexpected, and I was like, yeah, that's a perfect. There's always, you just have to accept that that's going to happen and embrace it,
because that's where, you know, some of my favourite bits in my films, like I had no control of that, and that just was great. What were some of your favourite short films that you've seen this year and that we could go and check out in lockdown?
Oh, well, Luna's films.
Sophie's films. Akinola Davis, Lizard. Love him. Love all of his stuff. He's magic. I can't wait for him to make kids' films and every kind of film. He really is a special human. Who else? I'm trying to think. I just watched this really actually funny short on LSFF, and it's called Mr. Whippy. I really enjoyed that. What else?
Oh my god, I've got a complete.
Caroline Poggy and Jonathan Vanell. Go watch their shorts. They're so good. After School Knife Fight, is that one of them?
Yeah. So good.
And their feature.
So many shorts like in the last few months. I'm just pulling a total.
My friend Daisy, LSFF, she just made 7 Bananas. Go check that out. It's really great. I'm trying to think of other short films that I've watched. It's really hard.
David Vicente's The Lamb of God was really, really beautiful. I'm trying to think of. Oh, Anil Karir's The Last Goodbye, super good.
I'm gonna check that out. That sounds The Last Goodbye. I love titles that are like that. They're just.
Yeah.
Wait, this is a good question. What's the stuff that you do every day that you'd recommend to new filmmakers? Walking, reading, watching movies?
Oh, all of those things.
All of those things. And I've recently, this year, I've got a diary and I colour code, and I've been writing down all the films that I do watch and the series that like I'm currently watching, because it's nice to have a little coded of what I've been digesting. What was the name of filmmaker you just mentioned earlier? Teenage Dreams.
Oh, was that Jonathan Vanell and Caroline Poggi?
Yeah. Is that them? Yeah, definitely. How do you find? I'm trying to answer these. Like my brain's going like raving music. How do you find people to collaborate with and do things for your film? Like where? I don't know. It's like it's really hard because it's like that. It just doesn't happen naturally, does it? Like as often as you like it to. It's just reaching out to people and being internet friends with people for a few years, and then 4 years down the line, you end up doing, you know.
I felt like I've known you for so long just through them, and like even though we never met, like I
know, but that's the way I feel about you, like completely. But I just feel like I've known you for ages, even though we've only just started speaking. Is absolutely bizarre. All right. Well, the way we both went, how are we going to do this organically? I don't quite know.
Oh wait, I was reading Kara's message. What?
Yeah, that's what I was reading. Well.
Okay then. Oh yeah.
We finally got to speak. This is just giggling and just talking about mad stuff. Maybe we should do it more often.
Yes. Yeah. I hope you've enjoyed our
radio show. Yeah,
our radio show. Tune in again next time for more pearls of wisdom and
yeah. Thank you everyone for your questions.
Yeah, thank you
for tuning in. Mad love. Totally.
All right.
Thank you, Sophie, for breaking up my monotonous day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. It's been an absolute joy.
Thanks, BFI Network. Thanks, LSFF. Should we do the dung?
Yeah,
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Bye. Thank you so much.